Hello and welcome to the Skycast, Fantasy Football Scout's Sky Fantasy Football version of the regular Scoutcast. Gameweek 48 is still going on, Gameweek 49 is coming up, and we now have the fixture schedule right up until the end of the season. My name is Joe, and today I'm joined by Luke to look at our teams and the best use of our meagre transfers and captains for Gameweek 49 and beyond. Welcome, Luke, how are you?
I'm not bad, Joe. I'm a little bit miffed. I had Sarr captain last night when a lot of people will have gone for the Chelsea boys, and you included, I think.
Yes, indeed.
Wasn't expecting too much because obviously Watford and Sarr in general haven't been great. But when it's home to Norwich and you kind of held him for this game, you're kind of hoping he gets something. And obviously in FPL, he actually got an assist. In Sky, he's not been credited it though, sadly. So ended up getting a blank. But apart from that, and the fact my cleaner's downstairs at the moment, blasting out Adele, so I hope you can't hear that through the mic. We're all good.
Yeah, that's the thing with Sarr. I mean, I've got him. He's a sort of I don't want to waste a transfer removing him at the moment, or maybe I will. But yeah, he's proving himself not captainable, and I actually kept him to be a captain. So yeah, I'm one of those who made a precious move to get a Chelsea player in. Let's have a look at your teams, see how we're doing. So for the benefit of those listening onto the podcast versions, we've got two teams here. Remind me again, is the Salah one your main one, or is the Martial one your main one?
The Salah one's the main one,
okay.
Unfortunately.
Right, yeah.
But, yeah.
So that one has Ederson in goal, Gomez, Van Dijk, Sionju in a 3-5-2 with KDB, St. Maximin, Sarr, Lo Celso from Spurs, Fernandez. I will raise my eyebrows at that one. And Fernandez, Salah, and Jimenez up front there. And then your B team is very similar: Ederson, Van Dijk, Alexander-Arnold, and Aurier. My favourite in FPL at the moment. KDB, Foden. Good move having him in already. You've already benefited from some of his points. Sarr, Fernandez, and in a 3-4-3 you've got Martial, Calvert-Lewin, Jimenez up front. Tell us about sort of what your sort of rank aims are with these. How many transfers you got left, and tell us a bit about what plans, if any, you have for them.
Yeah, so I've only got one transfer left now in both teams. I decided to go early on a few moves, and some of which have backfired. Some have done okay. Rank aims is basically top 500 now. I don't think I can go any higher than that. So if I can get that, it's not really been a successful season, but I'll have to take it, I guess. The thing is, the restart really hurt me because I'd used a lot of transfers just before that in sort of preparation for what was upcoming, and then obviously it completely changed form and all sorts of different things, obviously the match days. And those of us that have had a few transfers, I think, have been really hit by this because obviously you can't really adapt so well. So I've got players in my team that I don't really want. Jimenez, Salah, I don't particularly want anymore, but I don't really have any other option. At least they're good players, though, who could obviously return at any point. That's the sort of kicker. But I made a move early in the team one for Lo Celso for the Spurs game on Monday night, and he actually got an assist, and I think he got bonus points as well, tier 2 passing. So that turned out to be a pretty good move, actually, considering no other assets actually returned in that game, apart from maybe Aurier, or popular assets anyway. So that was a fairly good move. I'm pretty happy with that. I wanted Spurs coverage, but I didn't want to go all in because Spurs haven't been that great, and I didn't really fancy their expensive assets. So I'm kind of happy with having Aurier in one and Lo Celso in the other. I think I've kind of got the best two options there at the moment anyway.
I like Aurier there. Is good. And I think you're right. I mean, I've got Son in mine, and I've just paid a lot of money for a winger in a very defensive, not very informed side. Harry Kane is interesting though. You never know with Harry Kane, but yeah, I just look at those. I look at the form and the team as a whole. They don't look worthy of massive investment, but they are handy to have for those.
Yeah,
for those single.
Well, that's why I think the way they're playing at the moment with Aurier, obviously, I mean, clean sheets are coming because of the way they're playing. Aurier is always a threat, as we know, and he's good for tackles. So I think he's a great Sky pick, regardless. He's been for a while. Lo Celso is a little bit out there, but he obviously, when Spurs do have a lot of the ball because they're playing so defensive, Lo Celso's their playmaker, so he ends up with the passing and he's clear man of the match whenever he takes to the pitch for Spurs. Really, he's easily their best footballer. So that was my thinking there. Obviously, the game coming up for them on the Thursday, the 9th of July, is away to Bournemouth. So this is the game that could make or break their assets, really, isn't it? Given the way
Yeah.
Bournemouth's form has been. Obviously, in that game, you'd probably more likely prefer the likes of Son and Kane in case they do go big. But at the moment, I'm not sure whether that's a thing. I mean, I think it's going to come down to Bournemouth basically more than Spurs on that one, whether they turn up or not.
I mean, looking at these teams, I really like your. I mean, I quite like the A team, but your B team I really like, and I think whether by design or nice happenstance, it's really set up well for these final games because you've got De Bruyne and Foden. So you look at the team sheet. We get to see the team sheets a number of times when City play. KDB be a great captain. Foden, good on a different captain. Look at the team sheet. KDB's not playing. Foden is. Bringo. You're fine. Lots of those like me, have just got KDB. You just got to go for it and hope he comes on for 20 minutes. Same with Manchester United. Now they're a bit more secure for starts, but you've got Martial there as a nice backup for Fernandes. And I'm also finding Fernandes is so well owned. You've got to have more. You've got to have more Manchester United. You have to either captain him or at least have someone like Martial. I think Calvert-Lewin is potentially good for the final few games, quite handy. But I kind of like that 3-4-3 setup. It looks, I mean, as you said about transfers, it's a shame we haven't got more because it's a nice flexible setup.
Well, this is my main dilemma now. For me, I mean, I don't know how many other people are in this position, but I don't know if anyone's actually looked at the season ticker on Fantasy Football Scout, but sort by attack, go to the top, look who's the best. And Newcastle, Man City's fixtures just absolutely blow me away. It's like home to Newcastle, away to Brighton, home to Bournemouth, away to Watford, home to Norwich.
That's the final game, isn't it? And we're going to know the team sheet. And that's why I like your Foden, De Bruyne double up. And that's probably what I'm looking to spend one of my transfers on. I don't want to miss out on that.
Well, exactly. So now I'm thinking, this is my main dilemma at the moment. I think one of our questions even later, and I might just address it now, is that how should we use with transfers? Well, for me, I'm thinking, given that we're recording this Wednesday morning, so Man City haven't played Newcastle yet, they're about to play tonight. I'm thinking maybe I just ignore some of the captain days where we've seen the likes of Sarr not particularly do well, and maybe we're targeting players we don't really want, and I just go for 2 more Man City players in each team because those games are so good. I know there'll be a rotation. They might not play all of them, but for example, I could get Mahrez in as well to add to both teams, or I could get Foden in the other team or whatnot, and just have more Man City because I think when you look over a 5-game stretch, there's a very big chance that they do very, very well. Would you not say? Well,
exactly, yeah. Because also we've got these. I mean, you mentioned these single game week days. We're going to talk about them in a minute because we've got the lengthy fixture ticker, the fixture schedule up on the screen soon, and that will show us that there are some annoying single game week days or annoying days anyway. And do we really want to spend precious transfers on Burnley or Norwich players and those types of moves? But nevertheless, there are some teams that perhaps could be worthy of investment. Chelsea, for example, West Ham. And West Ham are emerging as quite a tidy side to have in fantasy football at the moment. But yeah, I think you're completely bang on with City, and that's what I'm sort of looking at with my transfers. I don't want to mess around, getting a backup to Sarr if Watford are my only option. I'm just going to go, well, what the hell? I'm just going to have Sarr as my captain that day, be done with it, but focus on getting the potential, maximising those points. Say Man City, they've got 4-5-0 drubbings there, and Mahrez could get a brace, Foden could get a brace, any of them could. David Silva on the final game for Man City. All he has to do is walk on the pitch and he's got man of the match, surely.
Yeah. Well, see, if your Man City asset plays 3 of those last 5 games, and even is not captained because you captain Kevin De Bruyne, there's still a good chance, I think, given the nature of the games and the way that I know that they just lost to Southampton, but it was a bit of a fluke result, I think. I still think they could outscore a number of other assets that you could bring in, including having 5 games and a captain day. I mean, that's how we know how good Man City can be and how good those games are. There is that potential.
Yeah,
like you say, Mahrez could easily score a brace in a game, be on penalties. I think he's usually on them if Kevin De Bruyne's not on them now, isn't he? It seems to be that way. Like De Bruyne seems to have overtaken it at the moment, but then De Bruyne's not assured of his game time either, is he?
No.
So yeah, I really like it, to be honest. And there's even the way Jesus is playing at the moment, there's a good chance that a lot of these assets could find themselves up front or in out of position and all sorts of things.
Yeah, Sterling in particular, replacement there. There's all talk of Gundogan up front. I'm not sure that'll happen, but Gundogan is, I believe, on the penalties list, the roster somewhere behind KDB. So he could end up being the highest point scorer on a particular game day. So you never know. Let's get my teams up. So there's a sort of similar issues, slightly different personnel. So my main team, I have Henderson, Van Dijk, Alexander-Arnold, Sionju, Kevin De Bruyne, Barnes, who is the Leicester Barnes. He's a hangover from pre-lockdown. Pulisic, new in, 22 points as a captain. Thank you very much. Sarr, 4 points, standard. Fernandez is there. And then up front, I've got Heung-min Son, who will do, but it's not great. And Jimenez, who is dispensable. And in my B team, so my main team is 349th, I think, now. So I'm hopeful. I'd like to stay around there. I'd love to get in the top 100. I'd like to not be out of the top 500. And if it sinks out the top 1,000, I will not be happy with that team. But in my 3,000 or 400 or so ranked side, I've got Pope, Van Dijk, Alexander-Arnold, Bulldog, Kevin De Bruyne, Barnes still, Mount, Fernandez, Troy Deeney. That was a punt that hasn't worked so far. Heung-min Son and Jimenez. So a lot of dispensable players there. I have 3 transfers left in my main side. I have 7 left in my backup side. And so how I use them, I think Ings is a possible for either of them. Foden, I do like bolstering my City assets. West Ham, Antonio or Bowen, and another Manchester United player in my thoughts. But pretty much no one else is in my thoughts. It's just those players, really. And that's for either of those. Because as you said, I'm not going to go, oh my God, I haven't got a Norwich asset when they play on a single game. Well, what the hell? I'm just going to avoid that.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, Norwich potentially cover 2 single match days, don't they? However, one of them is away to Chelsea, which you wouldn't expect any points from that at all. The other is home to Burnley, where I guess there is a chance. However, the thing with Norwich, not only are they not good, as we all know, but they've been rotating a lot of their assets as well. So you could easily go early for the Chelsea game and then that player not play home to Burnley, which would end up being a complete waste of a move. And then when you have the final day away to Man City, I know Norwich beat City earlier in the season, but I think that would probably be even bigger miracle at this stage if that happened. So yeah, there's that quantity over quality chat that we often have in Sky. However, there is a player, like you've already mentioned there, in Bowen for West Ham, and Antonio, really, who's a little bit more, but just as capable, that do cover some of these single days, and also have some good games in general, and don't look like they're getting rotated at all, and those two are in particularly good form. So I do actually really like those moves. The question for me with one swap is that move going to be more beneficial than the Man City swap? Like I've already said, I think that's a hard one to call. However, if you've got numerous transfers and you've got the likes of Sarr and other people in your team that you're not particularly happy with, you've got Barnes there, I saw, etc. I think going for Bowen is a really good move. I mean, to be fair, you could argue we've missed the boat a little bit. He got 16 points against Southampton 6 weeks ago, and then he's followed that up with 4 points against Arsenal, 5 against Wolves, 4 against Spurs, 8 against Chelsea, and then 5 against Newcastle. I think that's really, really good. He's owned by 0.17% of people. Only 3% have got him in the top 1K, which is where we're probably looking. And he just picks up bonus and it's just a real handful. He's always in line for man of the match, I think, if West Ham do well. So I really like him as an option, and I may still get him over a Man City option. I've not quite decided yet.
Yeah, he's one. I mean, I think for me, a City, a United, and one of Bowen, Antonio, or Ings, and I don't know yet.
Along with the Chelsea player that you've already got secured in Pulisic, a lot of us won't be able to go there. So the other option for us, I guess, is to look at. It depends where you can rotate your assets. For me, it would only probably be the cheaper ones that I can do. So the likes of Mount and James, who aren't necessarily nailed, but I still kind of like them as well. I mean, arguably the time to do it was last night, Tuesday the 7th. However, I do kind of like waiting, which I've done for Tuesday the 14th of July, so you can actually see the lineup. Chelsea home to Norwich, to be sure. I know Chelsea haven't rotated that much, but in my mind, I thought there's always a chance of it happening. It turns out it's not really been the case, and obviously Pulisic and Willian have been absolutely amazing. So if you did move early on either of them, then fair play to you, basically.
Yeah, I should have, should have moved earlier, but I didn't want to hold off on this one. I wanted to get him in for this nice run, and I did. When I looked at those advanced fixtures ahead of this show, actually looking at them, I saw that Chelsea had a single game week day. I thought, well, okay, now's the time to move. A precious transfer. We're still in game week 48 at the moment. We're sort of tidying that up. It's pretty much for me. I'm just looking at so the fixtures we've got left tonight. Man City against Newcastle. I'm going to go for a Man City player, KDB, for captain. And then we move on to Thursday, and I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking, well, Fernandes, obviously. I think I was just looking, and I think that's just the pattern it's going to be. It's going to be KDB, Fernandes, and some other blokes, and I think that's summarised the rest of this Sky campaign in terms of the captaincy. But yeah, for you, just before we come on to Game Week 49, just to tidy up Game Week 48, is it the same with you, or are you looking at different things?
I mean, if Kevin De Bruyne's in the starting lineup, then he probably is the better captain. I might be tempted just to go Foden just to be different, but obviously Kevin De Bruyne's got the highest ceiling with penalties, etc. for me. So that would simply just to be different more than anything else. For Thursday, you could argue, I mean, you obviously get to see the lineups for Spurs as well. You could argue, if you've held Son or Kane, then this is the time to possibly go there. Villa have been actually pretty good defensively, although maybe not in actual results, but in terms of their underlying numbers, they're pretty good. It is Man United, though. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be Fernandes in my main team. I have got Martial in that second team. So again, in the interest of being different and hoping he gets another hat trick or something, I might go for Martial in that one. But the play is Fernandes and Kevin De Bruyne all day. It's not really a days to be different, I don't think.
No, I mean, I think in my B team, I'll try and be a little bit more different because I just want to see how high it can get. But whatever it is, I'm not going to remember that in years to come. That time I came 4,000th or something.
Exactly.
But I might remember that time. Well, I do remember the one time I did get in the top 100, and you always remember that. So that's the goal. Let's have a look at game week 49. So we know a bit about that. We know the captains there. Let's go through those days though. So just get that up on my screen, just because with Sky, looking at the fixtures can be a bit laborious. First. So look on that Saturday. For me, I've got Van Dijk for Liverpool against Burnley as my captain. Just sensible and boring. But looking at those fixtures, Norwich, West Ham, Watford, Newcastle, Liverpool, Burnley, Sheffield United, Chelsea, Pulisic. Pulisic looks good option for me there as well. Brighton against Man City. Man City away, I'm not sure about, and also we won't know the lineups. So, what do you think, Van Dijk, or is they're better that day?
Yeah, I think this is one of the ones that's going to be a bit of a spread because of the reasons you just mentioned there. We don't get to see any of the lineups of the main teams because of the 12:30 kickoffs. So Van Dijk is probably the safest pick. Yeah. I mean, home to Burnley, you would strongly suspect that is a 10-pointer. So 20 points as captain. Throwing a goal from a corner and you're absolutely laughing. So I do actually really, really like that. I've still got Salah in my main team, so I may just go him again to be a bit different. But obviously, I'll have to see the news as to whether it looks likely he's going to be starting or not. There's always that chance he won't. And then you've got the Chelsea lineup is probably the better pick of the others, I would say, just because they've been more settled. I know Sheffield United away, especially before the restart, wasn't a particularly good game, but it seems a little bit better now from the way Chelsea are playing. I couldn't argue with that. And yeah, the Man City away to Brighton one is the real wild card one, isn't it? Where you could get anything from 0 to 30 points from a player you captain in that. So again, that might be one for the B teams. I might throw, Foden captain in that one, for example, and just hope he scores a brace or something. But the sensible play, I think, is Van Dijk.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we do get a slight hint with rotation with Pep, if we can get a hint at all. And that is, so, for example, this could be an unfortunate quote to precede unfortunate events. KDB, I would imagine, would start tonight against Newcastle because he was benched against Southampton. And it goes on like that. And if you see them benched, they're more likely to play the next match. But then again, it's Pep, so we don't know entirely. But we can hazard a guess there. Let's moving on to the Sunday, the 12th of July. Some interesting matchups there. Wolves against Everton. Good for Jimenez. Good for your Calvert-Lewin. Villa against Palace. For those that still have Grealish, perhaps. Spurs against Arsenal. Bournemouth against Leicester. It's quite a tricky day, actually. I mean, I've got Son and Jimenez, and it's probably going to be one of them. But it's not. It doesn't look like using a precious transfer for a captain. I'm quite happy with what I've got for that day. But yeah, Calvert-Lewin.
It's another one with a very big spread, isn't it? And yeah, for me, it will just be Jimenez because I've got him in both teams, and I'm not sure he's going to be my one swap out because to take a player out who's so consistent and plays up front, even though his balls look a little bit tired, the games aren't great. You know, like I say, ideally I would like to move him on, but to take him out when there's other options I've got that aren't as good, you've got to kind of focus on your weakest point, I think. So I'll be leaving him in. However, the standout one is probably Vardy again, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't really had much fun owning Vardy in Sky because I actually had him in both. I think I had him in both my teams after the restart, and obviously held him for some of those good games where he did absolutely nothing, and had to take him out. And then he's gone and scored in the last couple, and then this game. The Bournemouth game is arguably the best game in the calendar at the moment. So people might be tempted to go back there. The only thing with that for me is the next game's okay, home to Sheffield United the week after. I mean, that's all right. Just kind of cope with that. Then it's away to Spurs. You'd say the way Spurs are playing at the moment and Leicester aren't full of goals, you might struggle to get one there. And then the final day, they're at home to Man United, where again, you'd struggle. So those very, very low is kind of short-sighted, I think, just to go to Vardy just for that one game.
I mean, this is a crossover for me in FPL as well as Sky. I look at Vardy attempting transfer in, but we're coming to the end of the season. Transfers are limited in Sky, and in FPL it might cost points down the line. And yeah, I'd only really want him for this game. In Sky, I have Barnes, who may get a game, and Sionju as well. So I don't feel the need for Vardy, but as you said, he could end up with a 30, 40 point haul as a captain, and I could be left with 4 points with Jimenez. And that's one of those sliding doors moments where I perhaps wish I had gone for Vardy. And if people have more transfers, I would probably say it might be worth doing that, just a one game punt on Vardy. If you've got loads of transfers.
Well, you could stretch it out to 2 or 3. I think. Say the next game is home to Sheffield United, so you could. Yeah, so you could do the 2, and then he actually plays early on in the third game week. So Norwich and Burnley is the game on Saturday, and then he plays away to Spurs on the Sunday, where only Bournemouth play Southampton that day as well. So you could kind of get 3 games out of him there. Where he's okay, and then obviously you want to switch him out after that because they're playing Man United on the final day.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, I think if I did get him in for some reason, if I did use one of those transfers on him, this would be the day I would captain him, and I'm not sure I would any other days. I think there are potentially better ones. But as you said, yeah, I mean, he is. You don't really want a hokey cokey with Vardy. You just want to get him in, and then captain him for that one, and then just keep him, and I hope he keeps scoring. Next day, well, this is easy. Manchester United against Southampton. It's got to be Fernandes or perhaps Martial or Rashford, depending on.
And Greenwood's there now, isn't he? Yeah. Which is very, very cheap in Sky.
You're going to know the lineup, nice and easy.
That's it. Nothing else to say on that.
Next day, nice and easy as well. Chelsea against Norwich. Got to be a Chelsea asset or avoid. Do not go for a Norwich asset. I don't think. If you've only got a Norwich asset left, well then what the hell? Just go for it. But for me, Pulisic, and in my B team, Mason Mount. I'm not expecting a lot from Mason Mount, but I've got Chelsea there. Moving on, it's looking a bit much nicer. Man City against Bournemouth. That Bournemouth fixture again. We're going to know the lineup as well. This is really good. So for me, it's KDB if he's playing, and if he's not, well, I'm looking down there. Liverpool play Arsenal. Van Dijk is always there, hanging around, and Spurs against Newcastle. If someone's going for Harry Kane, it's a possible there as well. But yeah, what do you think that day? It's got to be Man City, isn't it?
Oh yeah, all day. We get the lineup when you get handed the Man City lineup on a plate and you don't take advantage of it.
Yeah.
yeah, you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah.
It's hard to say that after they just lost to Southampton, but I think that was a bit of an anomaly. I know the thing is they have lost like 9 games this season or something, haven't they? It's a crazy amount, but you just never expect it.
Well, that was towards the end of the day. We didn't even know. We didn't know the lineups. So
yeah, that's true. But home to Bournemouth, I mean, on paper that could be 8-0 or 9-0. It just depends how Man City approach the game.
And that final day in Gameweek 49, which is the Thursday, we're looking at Thursday 16th of July. This is Everton against Villa, Leicester, Sheffield United, Crystal Palace against Manchester United, Southampton, Brighton. Well, I mean, for me, Fernandes, that's the standout one. But I think if you've got Ings against Brighton, I think that's a good captaincy shout. And of course, Vardy against Sheffield United, you're going to know the lineup. He's a good shout there. And Richarlison, if you have him, and in your case, Calvert-Lewin against Villa, that's good. There's a lot of good choice there. It's going to be a big spread, I think, not just totally Fernandes.
Yeah, I agree with that. Fernandes will probably be the most popular one, but there's lots of different options on that day. Yeah. And again, it depends where we're at this point, who's been playing well, etc. I mean, Everton haven't been great, but suddenly they could turn the corner. So it's one to judge a little bit later down the line, I think, and judge whether you want to take a risk on that day. You say Ings, for example, could easily get a hatful in that goal. A goal and a penalty, for example, man of the match. He's suddenly played fantastically. And Palace obviously can shut up shop if they want to and just leave Man United to pass the ball around.
I mean, I think as we've been talking on this show, I've gradually convincing myself. I had this plan to get Ings in a couple of weeks ago. I still had it at the last show. I've got it even more now, I think, because although he's not a single game weekday captain, he's a captain on days like this where if you want to push up the rankings a bit, he could be a good option there. And Southampton have a great final bit of the season. He's pushing for the Golden Boot. I think he's a very good use of a precious transfer because he is, especially if you're going to captain him. I don't think I would get him in if I didn't think I was going to captain him. But if I was going to captain him, definitely good. Hey, we are lucky because we have game week 50 and 51. That's the final game week set of fixtures in this campaign. So going once again, let's go through them again for the captaincy. So looking at let's get up on my screen here. Looking at game 50. This is where we start getting these really annoying single match days. So West Ham on the Friday, 17th of July, game week 50. We've got West Ham against Watford. This is where spending a precious transfer on Antonio or Bowen could pay dividends. As it is, I've got Sarr at the moment. Eeks.
Yeah, I think I don't think I would make a move on that day at all. I think if you are looking to cover that match day with Bowen or Antonio, then the time to do it is now, tonight, basically. West Ham are at home to Burnley, so they play that match, then they play away to Norwich, and then they finally have this captain day home to Watford. So in isolation, if I had more transfers left, I wouldn't hesitate on that move. It's like I've said before, it's just whether I want to do that or Man City. So that's my debate I've got for the next couple of hours, really, as to what I'm going to do there. Yeah. But otherwise, like you, I also have Sarr in my team. So it's kind of like I have got a captain for that day, potentially. Not that I'm particularly happy with it, but that kind of factors into your decision, right? Yeah. So there we are.
The next day, 18th of July, another one. Norwich against Burnley. Oh, my God. My B team, I've luckily got Pope. A hangover from pre-lockdown. Thank God for the Pope. But in the main team, I have nothing. So I'm either, for me, it's nothing or Pope.
I completely agree.
And I could get Pope in. It's a precious transfer. I'll be getting him just for this, to captain him. And if he doesn't get a clean sheet, then I'm going to be massively annoyed. So I might just avoid this. I
think that's an avoid all day. I know Pope has that ability to frustrate us and probably will pick up a clean sheet in this game, but it's still a not particularly high ceiling, is it?
No.
And they say just one goal changes it.
Yeah.
So, if you've got Pope, brilliant. If you haven't, I would still stay way away from that game. I did actually notice that someone said, maybe we'll come to it later, about them having Dwight McNeil and whether they should hold specifically for this game. For me, I'm just going to say it now, no. I think there's too many other games beforehand where there are other options that could do better, and then you are really relying on McNeil going crazy in the game. Now, I'm sorry if he scores a brace or a hat-trick in that game and you could have absolutely flown, but right now I can't see it I can't see him outscoring the likes of a Man City midfielder season long, including that captain day.
I think looking at ceilings and floors for this game, as a Pope owner, I've monitored what sort of scores he's getting. There was I think it was a single game week day against Palace. Got a clean sheet. Got 22 points as captain. Great, but I don't think you're going to get more, and you could easily get much less. So for me, I think I prefer getting a City asset or Ings who's going to rack up those sort of scores and be captainable for the rest of the season.
Or an Antonio maybe at a push or a Bowen,
exactly. And speaking of Ings, next day, Sunday the 19th, Bournemouth against Southampton, Spurs against Leicester. Well, Vardy looking good. Harry Kane could be good. I've got Son. I don't think I would captain him. This is why I quite like Ings. Yeah, Southampton against Bournemouth. That looks Ings-tastic for the captaincy that day. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, if I had Ings, I wouldn't hesitate. It'd be my captain in that game 100%. For me, I've got Aurier in one team and I've got Lo Celso in the other team. I don't think I'm going to be able to cover any of the other options because I've only got the one swap. So that's what it's going to be. Just hope they do okay.
Yeah, one. I'm pretty much convinced myself. One of Jimenez or Son is going to go for Ings. I don't know which one, but it's not going to be just yet. But I would like him very soon.
Also, the likes of Soyuncu, by the way, if people are really worried about that day, a lot of people have got Soyuncu. I think you got passing bonus and maybe even tier 2 his last game.
Yeah.
So, it's Spurs. We've already seen how they seem to play. You would expect one goal at most from Spurs, I would have thought, in that game, especially the way Leicester play as well. Good defence. So Soyuncu's not the worst option either there. He may get passing even if they concede.
Monday the 20th of July, Brighton against Newcastle, Sheffield United against Everton. Looks good for Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin, if we think Calvert-Lewin's going to get more form back. Wolves against Palace. For me, I'm penciling in Jimenez, really. Baldock at Sheffield United or Henderson, I think could be good options there as well, even though I've just picked up Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin. The problem here with Wolves and Jimenez is that Mrs. Jimenez is going to be giving birth around this time. We don't know when that's going to be, and we're not going to know the lineup. So basically, during the day, I suspect we'll have some inkling on social media whether she's actually given birth and whether Jimenez is likely to miss the next game. Or I don't think he'll miss more than 2 games, but I think he might miss a game for this, depending on when the birth is. So I'm not. It's
a very interesting day actually, because Wolves then play away to Chelsea on the final day, where you probably wouldn't want them. A lot of people will have moved off Wolves before this, so we'll no longer have their Wolves for this day, which is probably a sensible move. So that leaves this day, to me, potentially missable, because Brighton at home to Newcastle, not great. I mean, I've got St. Maxim, so if he's fit and back, he will be my captain on that day for one of my teams. The other team's got Calvert-Lewin, so I'll be sticking him in. But neither of those assets I feel particularly great about owning up until this point. So I think, some people will have some Sheffield United left over. You're going to see some Baldock captains here. You're going to see quite a lot of them, and maybe
Henderson. And this is why I don't think I'm going to do the Henderson to Pope swap. Because I might end up captaining Henderson this day. Because I
think that'll be fine.
If Jimenez makes the move out for Ings, so I think Ings is better for the run-in. Unless Mrs. Ings is going to give birth as well.
I think the only player that can punish you to this game week is the likes of Jimenez. So I think, but it's probably too much to hold on to him just for that. And then it's definitely too much for me to bring him in, considering they play away to Chelsea the week before. So it's kind of a captain, a leftover asset, or even miss it for me, even over going Jimenez, which is obviously the standout pick on the day.
Looking at Tuesday the 21st of July, Watford against City, Villa against Arsenal. City, we're going to know the lineup. It's a gift. This is why I like the second City option. If both of your City players are benched, then just captain one of them and just hope they come on. And I think Southampton game was an anomaly. I've never seen Southampton play that well, and I've never seen their defence perform that well. And Manchester City was still great. So for me, I'll be looking at KDB, or if I go for the likes of Foden. Same for you. You've got that luxury of making that choice.
100%. I mean, my captain will be a Man City player. If they don't start, I'd probably still captain a Man City player, even though I probably will still own Sarr at this point. I'll probably still put it on one of the Man City bench options and hope they just come on.
And the final, I was going to say the final game, the final match day, 22nd of July, Manchester United against West Ham, Liverpool against Chelsea. We're going to know the Manchester United lineup, and we're not going to know the Liverpool one. But I quite like this because I mean I would captain Fernandes, but for some reason Fernandes is injured, not playing, I will quite happily take a risk that Van Dijk's going to play, and I think he's still a good option. And there's also Pulisic as well for me, but for me it's a sort of standard Fernandes Van Dijk backup sort of day.
100%, yeah, I agree with that. It's going to be Fernandes all day, and then move to the ever immovable Van Dijk, basically, if you have to.
Now, final game week 51. We know all of the lineups. Everything takes place at 4 o'clock that day. So at 3 o'clock, we're going to know everything, and we've got time to make our moves. Looking at the final day for me, Manchester City against Norwich is screaming out captaincy at me. So it will be KDB or another City. And once again, that narrative, get a City back up. They're going to be handy to score points, but you might need them as a captain as well. David Silva's final game is so tempting if I had more transfers. But I think Foden and Mahrez are probably, or Sterling, if you can afford him, are probably the best backups.
Yeah, my transfer would be David Silva in as captain if I had the option on that day. Yeah. I mean, he's likely to play the vast majority of the game and probably come off to a standing ovation in like the 87th minute or whatever, isn't he? There could be a load of kids that play in that Man City team on that day as well, which would be fitting to David Silva sort of handing over to Foden. I mean, I imagine Foden's going to play as well. I really like it, which I don't know where that leaves Kevin De Bruyne, but it's, we're trying to predict Pep ages in advance, but in my mind, David Silva and Foden would both play, or it will be David Silva playing and Foden might actually just come on for the last 3 minutes to signify the handing over of the torch, if you will, or something. I don't know. Adding a bit of romance into it at the moment, but yeah, it's David Silva all day, a Man City player, definitely. Yeah. Obviously, if you get down to the final day, and I think that even the people right at the top, like say you're in the top 5, they'll all be captaining a Man City player. That's probably the only time where I might consider, if literally you need to gain 20 points from thin air, that we move away from Man City, just because most people will go City as the best option. You just try to go for someone else on the off chance that you can capture something. So the likes of a crazy move for Aubameyang home to Watford, for example, if he's still going for the Golden Boot, he could easily hit a hat trick in that game, couldn't he? So yeah, he'd probably be the main one I'd consider from on that day.
Yeah, I mean, once again, Danny Ings at home to Sheffield United.
That's fair.
It's not great, but Danny Ings, if he's going for the Golden Boot, and yeah, I think there are other options, but I don't think anything is as good as City final day against Norwich. But there will be rotation, and that's why it's going to be really handy knowing the team sheet, because if they're through to the cup final, the FA Cup final, and then they've got Champions League coming up, then we need to be aware of rotation there. Let's have a look. We've got some, just to finish off, we've got some community questions. We probably answered a lot of these over the last half an hour or so, but we'll mention them again. Benny Blanco, he's currently holding players like Sarr, I don't know it, and McNeil only for their upcoming single game week fixtures. Should we ditch now anyway for the likes of Foden, or indeed emerging West Ham assets like Antonio and Bowen? I think you've answered this really. Go for broke, go for those high ceiling, because Sarr's just looking like a 2-point floor at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's hard to answer that one without knowing how many swaps he's got. But if he has the option, then I would probably take it right now. I wouldn't hold on to them necessarily. I think Sarr you can hold on more so because he covers that game away to West Ham, and their fixtures in general are actually okay. Burnley, although you could argue their games are not too bad, I just don't really like them as an attacking team at all. And I feel like that Saturday 18th of July that we talked about is going to be missed by virtually everyone who hasn't got Pope anyway, so you're not really losing out there at all. So yeah, I'd make the moves if you could.
FPL Wilson asks, he's got 5 transfers left. Well, that's 2 more than me. How best should I use them? Well, for me, I think I focus there. Look at the captaincy days and see and make sure you're covered, but also look at the captaincy days and think, do I need to be covered? And I look at that and I don't think, there's a single game week day, I must get a Norwich player in. I think, City, we're going to know the lineup and I've only got KDB. What am I going to do if KDB's benched and Foden is in the starting lineup or Sterling's up front, well, I think that's how I would use the transfers. Target the big sides, Manchester City, Manchester United. Target players looking for the golden boot. Target players that might get man of the match. That's the way
I would be tempted to just completely ignore all captain days and just bring 5 Man City assets in. I would be tempted to do that. The caveat to that is maybe go for 2 or 3 Man City and then look at least one Chelsea if you haven't got it for that one day that I probably think is worth covering, the home to Norwich game, and then possibly and West Ham. So the likes of going Bowen and Pulisic plus 2 or 3 Man City would probably be the way I would take that if I had 5 subs.
Milky wonders whether it's worth doubling up on Chelsea. I think if you've got lots of transfers left, well, I say lots, if you've got, say, more than 5, I think so. If you've got Willian, go for Pulisic as well. If you've got Pulisic, go for Willian as well. Aspilicueta could be another option. These are pricey players, though, but they are assisting or scoring for each other, and you're getting those extra points there. So, yeah, I do think it's worth it. For me, with 3 transfers left, no. I'm not going to use it for that.
Yeah, there's also injuries. There's no way we go from this point in the season to the end with not at least one popular player getting injured. That's the problem.
Yeah,
it will happen. So you've always got to have that in your back of your mind. It's not just the player you bring in; it's the other 10 you've got in the rest of your team that could pop at any point.
Yeah.
So suddenly Fernandes gets a hamstring, home to Southampton or whatever, and there's a lot of money and a player that is heavily, heavily owned, that some people will be able to switch to the likes of a Willian and you can't. So, I'm in the position where I've only got 1 swap left. I'd love to make a load of moves, but to be honest, I am probably keeping it right up until the last moment because I've experienced this before. In fact, the year I came 4th, I went for Aguero early, had no transfers left, and then he got injured and Zeko came in and scored a boatload of goals for Man City in the final days. Luckily for me, Aguero came back on the final day and had that famous Aguero moment as captain and got me the spot. But the amount of points I missed out in the 5 or 6 weeks before it was just incredible, and it could have won me it. So I'll always keep that and remember that experience and know that I cannot go 0 transfers for the last 2 or 3 games.
Yeah, I've had that before. Same thing. Harry Kane for me. Scored absolute hatful, braces, hat tricks, and nothing left. I would like to go to the final game week with 1 transfer left, but it's not the ultimate priority. But I would like to. I would like to spend 2 transfers now and have 1 at the final. And I think this guy, FPL Wilson, with 5 transfers left, I would use 4 on some of the players that we've mentioned if you don't have them, and think of backup captains as well for City, and just save 1 for the final one and get David Silva and captain him. I think that would be a good move. Amrabat, I'm going to mispronounce this. Amrabat man. Foden or Greenwood. Foden, good backup captain. That's been the theme of this show. While Greenwood appears now done. But yeah. I can't. Both of those are great assets to bring in for the reasons we've said, and also because they're going to get you points.
Yeah, I would vote Foden because Fernandes seems close to nailed for Man United, always plays, and it's dangerous to move away from him given how he gets passing, everything. So I think you kind of got that one assured, whereas Kevin De Bruyne, we've already seen, can easily get benched. So if you have Foden, I feel like you have a backup then for Man City, as we've discussed. So I think you're nearly always going to have Fernandes an option, hopefully. It looks that way anyway.
This is quite a good question from Mark Daniels. Barnes out before or after the Bournemouth game? This is exactly something I'm thinking about, and other Barnes owners will as well. Foden or West Ham player look ideal replacements. So that's ignoring the fact that Leicester have got this amazing fixture coming up against Bournemouth, is the fact that Barnes, who is finding himself benched frequently, may not even play. So it's a case of, could I get more points? And look at the team sheet tonight. And I'm going to be by my computer at 5 o'clock tonight. And if I see Foden on the team sheet, and I'm looking, someone's got to make way. It could be Barnes, because I've got Sionju already. And I think if you've got Sionju, and you've certainly got Vardy, if you've got Vardy, and you've got Barnes as well, he's very ditchable, I think.
I wouldn't hesitate with that. He's been very good, Barnes. Yeah. Like when he's actually played, he can easily get the assists and goals even off the bench, as we've seen. But the fact that you don't know he even starts, and the games for Foden before that, obviously home if he plays, home to Newcastle, away to Brighton, and then the same for West Ham, home to Burnley, away to Norwich. That's a 2-for-1 or anyway, and they're both great games, and you don't know Barnes plays, so I would make the move, and if you're unlucky with it, you're unlucky with it.
Yeah, I'm looking at that tonight about 5 o'clock. I'm looking at that, and I think if Foden's on the sign lineup, that's an easy move. Barnes to Foden. No, one of those no-brainers. Like the move I did, Grealish to Pulisic. You've got to think about the player you're getting rid of as well. For me, Grealish, 2-point player. Moving on for Pulisic as well. We've got a couple more questions before we finish, and it's on the same theme. We pretty much covered this, but I'll read them out anyway. Ben C, looking ahead to Gameweek 50, there are 2 single Gameweek days when he has no players at all. West Ham, he's got no West Ham, no Watford, no Norwich, and Burnley. Burnley and West Ham also have decent Gameweek 51 fixtures, worth considering with only 3 transfers left. See, I flip that on the head. I look at that and I go, you lucky. You've got none of those players from those teams. That probably means you're loaded up elsewhere. You would hope that means he's loaded up elsewhere with top teams. Out of all of that, I reckon West Ham will probably be the only one I would actually think are worth bringing in. If you've got no Norwich, Burnley or Watford, then that's a street party time. That isn't a time to cry.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Yeah. I would say obviously it's single game day. Anything can happen. Sometimes a player can get 20 or 30 points, but considering that most people won't be covering a lot of those, and the ceiling for a lot of those players isn't particularly high. It's Bowen or Antonio or no one, and I think all 3 of those are good options.
And we pretty much answered this. Kieran, okay. Any Burnley players worth bringing in apart from Pope? No.
Not for me, no. McNeil could do okay, but it's just a no for me, no.
Well, we've covered a lot there. We're going to be back next week for looking in detail at Game Week 50. So hopefully have helped people, especially with looking at those captain decisions and how we're going to use those precious transfers. But for the time being, Luke, thanks so much for joining me, and good luck with the Game Week.
You too, Joe. It was a pleasure. See you on the next one.
See ya.